Yo, what's going on? It's your boy Mo Giles, it's Straight Talk No Chasing, and I'm with my happy co-host,
Dewan Martin.
So, this week we're talking about, mental health. Actually, this month in celebration of mental health, we got some mental health professionals here with us, and we have the lovely Joy Drafton.
Get her name right.
I've been having a few drinks. So, tell us a little bit about what you do, Joy.
I currently work as a nursing supervisor for a hospital that handles acute and forensic admissions. I started out as a case manager, and that's how I got introduced to mental health. I left, I got my nursing degree, tried to get into any nursing field, ended up in mental health, and that's just where I've stayed.
And how long you been doing it?
It'll be about 10 years. I was on the floor. I worked on units for about 5 years, and then I left that and became a supervisor.
Okay.
That's fine.
Yeah.
Absolutely. So then we also have the legendary Dewan Martin,
Yes, sir.
also a mental health professional.
Yes, sir.
So why don't you give us a little bit about your background and kind of your journey in the mental health field, if you will.
I've been in the mental health field for the past 18 years. I recently started a program last October, working with youth in crisis to keep them in their home. So they're dual diagnosis. They have mental health and they have either a neurological disease. So we've been really working and keeping kids out of community centers and in their homes. So that's our goal, and that's what we've been committed to. So it goes from 18 to, I think the youngest we've had is 9.
Okay.
So it's really,
Wow.
really tough.
Absolutely. And last but not least, because this is important, can't forget about you, my friend, Mr. Mo Giles.
Yeah. What?
Well, I mean, you're in the field as well, my friend. So why don't you talk a little bit about what you do? We're not going to shortchange you today.
Nah, so I've been in the mental health profession about 5 years. I am a qualified behavioral health specialist. I work with kids, so when they get their assessment, they get their treatment. I then work on their goals and objectives, and their treatment plans to help them with their symptoms of maybe anxiety, depression, or whatever it is that they're dealing with.
Right. Well, and obviously the only person here that's not in the mental health field as a professional. I really want to kind of hear from you three.
You're a patient.
You said I'm being patient?
That's what he said. What he said, yes.
Because
Yes.
I'm running out of it. Let's make sure we're clear. But no, all jokes and all levity aside, I personally kind of like to talk to you three about what you guys do. I'm going to share a little bit about my personal experience as someone that's dealt with mental health on a real up close and personal level with a very, very close family member, and kind of, one of those kind of moments, and even some close friends of mine that I've seen some really interesting things. So I mean, I guess let's start with you, Mr. Martin here, Dewan.
Yes, sir.
Kind of tell us about mental health from your standpoint. Like, how do you view it in your interactions and things of that nature?
As well with these other professionals, I don't think mental health is taken as seriously as other health diseases are, right? So you
Right.
see a mental health bank robber, but they don't say a person with diabetes robbed the bank, right? So I don't think the attention is given to it, and as well as the money and the fundings that's needed to help maintain and keep these individuals as productive members of society. So that's why I wanted to start at the young age, so that they're able to create a structure and a routine for themselves, so that they can function and live normal possible lives. So that was always my goal. Starting out working with adults, and it was kind of, I don't want to say it's too late, but it was like I can't really help them like I want to. But when I got it with the kids, it was like, oh man, I can really reach them, teach them how important it is to maintain your meds and a routine and a structure and a schedule, and like you said, work on their goals.
Yeah.
And teaching their families, because I think that's the hardest part, because it's not something it presents as normal, so it's always just, oh, he acting out, or he just this and he just that, and it's not really taken seriously that mental health is a real thing.
It's funny that you mentioned that, and this is going to be my one little tidbit, from a personal standpoint. As I mentioned, having a close family member, and I like what you said. There's that the family, the community has to take it extremely serious.
Absolutely.
You know, as you guys are aware, I have a real close family member who was diagnosed as bipolar with schizophrenic episodes.
Right.
And, you know, that particular family member was not given that community
Right.
as in terms of the home support that was probably needed in that circumstance. And as a byproduct, had a violent episode where several people ended up in hospital. One person almost died as a byproduct of that. And one of the beautiful parts ended up being is that was never treated like a criminal. Was actually treated because of being on paper.
Right.
And the diagnoses, fortunately and unfortunately in many regards, with, you know, having that, you know, behavioral health issue, otherwise would have been, you know, 12, 14, 15 years, maybe even up to 25 years in prison versus, you know, the 3, 4, 5 that ended up being in a behavioral health center.
Absolutely.
And I think that's extremely important because that could have been avoided if the community had wrapped their arms around the person and just made sure that they stayed on track with their meds. And so, again, that's why we're talking about this, because I think that's a really, really key point, the community that's surrounding your support system. And so, to that standpoint, Mr. Giles, you know, kind of what are some of your experiences and kind of how do your scope and view of the mental health?
I think, as he said, you know, it doesn't get a lot of attention. I think now it's starting to, you're saying, become a thing and that's trending. But I think that, especially for African American kids, and one of the things I see a lot of them being misdiagnosed, you know, and you know they know that there is this book called the DSM-5, you know, and sometimes, you know, those diagnoses for our kids is different than what some of those white kids just ain't go through. You know what I'm saying? So PTSD, you're saying, for us is totally different in our community. You know what I'm saying? Because of the environment that we grow up in. You're saying than somebody in the suburbs. So I see a lot of that. And then I see sometimes too how he was speaking about you're sending kids. I can work with a kid all day, but if I send them back into an environment that you're saying the parents just as messed up. You know what I'm saying? And I'm like, the parent need, you're saying mental, you're saying evaluation and help too, and services. And then a lot of times there's that stigma where people just don't want to talk, you're saying whatever, because they feel as though they're crazy or they feel as though they're outcasts or something's wrong with them.
Right.
But I think that it's very healthy and important that we talk to people. You know what I'm saying? So it's removing those stigmas and those things and those barriers, you know, to try to get people comfortable and to understand what mental health is all about. So those are the challenges that I have, and you know that I try to just help with families just to try to understand more about what mental health is.
Absolutely. And then, you know, of course, you know, in your scenario, being in an actual, you know, clinical and hospital type of facility, how do you see it from your end? Because I think of all, you're probably the person who gets on the very, very back end where, you know, that child or that adult, you know, is kind of not necessarily the end of the road, but, you know, maybe that community or that support or that misdiagnoses you're finally seeing.
Right. So what I get are the ones where there's been no intervention or just a lack thereof. Mm-hmm. So I get those that are just dealt with it in their own ways, and they come in crisis, or they've committed a crime that has led them there because they've been evaluated as having a mental illness. So it's hard. We treat them as much as we can, but we are just there to treat the crisis and make them stable enough to get back into the community. So we do our referrals for community agencies, but with the population, there just isn't enough. There isn't enough community agencies. Like we have come a long way with the amount of hospitals. I will say in the 10 years that I've been in mental health, we had us and then maybe a few other local hospitals with a mental health floor.
Right.
It's like floor.
Right.
So, I mean, so there are more, but community-wide agencies, things like that, there's still a lot of work to do along with housing.
Right.
So that is one thing that we deal with. We deal with just them personally, their issues with not wanting to take certain medications, just behaviors, and then having that support once they are released.
Right.
So let me ask you something. Do you think that these mental health hospitals are coming back around? Because, you know, back in the day, you had these hospitals, or you know what they call it,
Psych
wards. Yeah, that's what it was called.
You know, are they starting to make a comeback, or why isn't it like it used to be? Is it because the state funding isn't there, or what?
I think funding, and then there was a light that was shown that there was a deficit in mental health, and just because it was trending, and so more attention was being paid to it. So we had more hospitals coming about, but it still is not. I don't think it's still truly is making too much of a difference. I mean, there's places for people to go while they're in crisis, but
It's a continued work.
yeah, it's afterwards. That's
yeah. So and that's the key that I really think is missing. And like
Yes.
you said, it's that community piece. They stabilize the behaviors and they stabilize the issues,
But
and then after that they're out,
Yeah.
and then you have the individual out either self-medicating or medicating on their
Exactly.
own, or trying to do their own things instead of having a positive influence or a role model. Just take your meds and do what you need to do, right? So I think that continuate piece. So what you have is a revolving door of people going back and forth
Got it.
in the crisis.
Yes.
So let me ask y'all this: what do y'all feel about the quality of care in the mental health? Because I see a lot of times agencies, it becomes a number game, and a lot of them don't care. You're saying too much about the quality of care, and it's more so about the billing and all of that.
And that's where I started this a year ago working with kids, and we built really slow. So to this point, from last October, we've been able to help 20 youths. And we started really slow, and I wanted to build slowly because I didn't want it to be about the money. I wanted it to be really about helping people. But what you find in doing this kind of work is the workers aren't paid like they should be, right? You ask them to do a dirty job, and you don't pay them as such, right? You're making $10, $12 an hour. Well, why would I go do that? And I can go work at Amazon for 16, right? So
Right.
I think individuals in this field should make comparable to firemen and police officers, because you're doing a specialty service and working with the individuals that are most vulnerable in our communities and that we need to protect. And you want to have people that have the skills to do that. So with those agencies, like you said, it's not a lot of training. It's not a lot of education on mental health. So you have people just coming in doing work during their shifts, but they're also working at 2 or 3 different agencies. So what I wanted to do was make it so that this was your only job, and you knew about this, and you knew how to help these individuals and these kids. And I wanted to make sure that they were well compensated for what they do, because you do an amazing job, and you work with a very delicate population, because when you have mental health issues, your finances are usually off. They're not really aware, so they can be really taken advantage of. So you have to have people with high integrity and high morals. So.
What you think as far as quality care and services in the mental health with the agencies?
Well, I can't say too much because I'm on the other spectrum.
Okay.
So I work in a job that is funded by the state. So I do see where numbers are an issue. It's kind of like a revolving door. You want to get them in, get them out. You get that bed filled, and get them out, and that next one filled. So
they're really treating the problem.
And it also depends on. It takes a special person to deal with the mentally ill. You've got to truly want to be in this profession to care about that person. So you see both ends. Some that are just there for the dollar, and then some that are truly there. So I mean, it all depends on the person. So I do see some, depending on who's treating who, that are truly getting the help that they need, and then especially the ones that are always coming in and out. I mean, you get them stable, you get them out, because you know they're going to come back. So.
Yeah.
So it's
And
kind
I
of
think the revolving door isn't a bad thing, because I think it needs that
it's not.
stabilization.
They have
I
a
think
place
it's
to go.
that community piece that's missing, that
Yes.
bridge or that gap in between that we're not getting.
So that brings me, and that's very interesting. Like I said, on a personal level, because the one thing that I keep hearing as we're having this conversation that keeps sticking in my mind is the school to prison pipeline. And the reason that sticks in my mind is I remember, even myself as a youth, someone tried to diagnose me with ADHD, right? Or you guys heard that kids getting put on Ritalin, back in the day. Are they still allowed Ritalin, or?
I don't know if it's
Not as
Ritalin. I think the
much.
drugs
I mean,
kind of changed.
Right,
but
right.
Still the same.
ADHD is still
Yeah.
Right, but you know how that label
Absolutely,
goes.
absolutely.
When you have a child that's misbehaving in class or hyperactive, he has ADHD. Well, maybe just a terrible teacher,
Yeah.
or maybe
Right.
which you guys, especially what you see and probably you're in a little bit more, and even you're in Mo, is that some of these kids are really intelligent.
Absolutely.
And they just need again that support. But here's my question for you: how do you feel that the mental health field has played or left a lack of support in that school to prison pipeline. And what I mean by that is this: young man gets diagnosed with ADHD, and then he's on all of these, courses and classes, and then because of that, he's mislabeled and ends up in prison or ends up in bad situation, or like a lot of you guys were talking about, not having that communal support. Do you guys see that in your field, or do you see that in the areas that you guys are working, or do you feel that impact, or no?
I can answer this because I was working in the Youngstown School District at one point, and I seen a lot of that, and it's almost layers as to why there are issues, because you have lack of funding, lack of resources, you have underpaid teachers,
Right.
You have teachers who really don't even want to be there. They're probably there because they didn't get chosen or hired in their district, so now they're working with kids that they've never dealt with, behaviors that they never dealt with or experienced in life. So
Student loan forgiveness. I heard the teacher tell me that.
Oh,
Yeah,
they
so,
get doctors too.
yeah,
Yes.
that's a big deal because
Yes.
you can go to a felon district and you can get your student loans forgiven.
Right,
So,
right.
Yeah.
So it comes with a lot of different things, but I've seen it, and from the mental health part of it, it's very good that we had agencies in the schools working with families and kids, because when I was growing up, I'm sure all of us, there was no representation, as
Right.
far as people advocating for mental health.
Exactly.
Right.
But I do, and it is real, the pipeline of prison, you can just see that the way the behaviors are going, what is going to happen, for some of these kids.
Right. And the reason I bring that up is because of what you guys have all kind of shared is care and concern. And being caring and concerned for that child or that adult. I've had, friends whose parents who were bipolar, schizophrenic, who have gone missing for weeks and just missing. And fortunately or unfortunately, that was just a behavior that they were accustomed to, and they just accepted it. Oh, he'll be fine.
trauma plays a big role into that.
Right.
And the
Right.
triggering that, right? So a lot of what we've been seeing is circumstances, right, or environment. So
Right.
white kids, their problems are different than black kids, right? They're usually, or black and brown kids, they're usually financial things. So when financial things isn't an issue, then I can usually navigate a little better or a little clearer. But when I got to worry about my mom being able to pay the bills, or if I'm coming home and we got an eviction notice, it triggers more behaviors, right? And then what happens when what we were seeing was mom is upset because she can't pay the bills, and it trickles down to him, and then he's feeding it, So it's like
So what's interesting? The most issues or problems we would have with kids, what days? Yes.
What days?
Fridays and Mondays.
Fridays and
because
Mondays.
it was Fridays is because some of these kids are going to abusive homes, homes with no food, no water. So they're acting out because they don't want to go home.
Absolutely.
And then you're saying we're coming back from Monday, they're coming back from all of that bullshit that they had to go through. So you're saying those are always the issues. And then another thing too, kids will always act out because you're trying to have kids sitting in classrooms for hours on end trying to learn. But some of these kids are hungry, man.
Absolutely.
They ain't got no lack of food, you're saying, or whatever.
Absolutely.
So, these kids ain't focused, they hungry, So
Right.
there's a lot of things you're saying you wouldn't believe that these kids deal with, and the reasons why they have the behaviors that they have in school.
And even understanding that we learn different, right? That's been proven,
Right.
Right.
So when you're trying to fit a kid into a box instead of making the box fit him, you see those differences, right? So some of us do better with one-to-one help. It's really hard for Johnny to raise his hand and tell you I can't read a sentence, so I'm gonna act out before it gets to me,
Right.
because I already know I'm getting ready to have to read out loud, right?
Right.
Or
That's another thing,
that
yeah.
individual help. So that's been the other piece of it
Right.
that you see.
Well, and again, that's why I asked it, because I think oftentimes with, like you said, being hungry at school, right, or being embarrassed to read in front of your peers, now you begin to act out, right? You get labeled as something, right? Now you're in and out of detention, you're getting held back, right? And then you get labeled as ADHD or whatever have you. Now you're in a situation where, from an educational standpoint, you're never really given that chance and opportunity to succeed.
Right.
And then you get out here into society where you don't have, again, like, as we continue to talk about that community, right, that environment, And then what do you know? Now you're in either a behavioral health center or you're in prison, and really it could have been as simple as, man, just feed this kid.
Absolutely.
Or pull him to the side and give him some tutoring after school. And I think societally, at least in my opinion, we don't do a good enough job of understanding that. And not from we understand it. Let's make it clear. We understand it, but we don't do a good job of actually.
No, I know, because I don't. Was you about to say something?
No, go ahead.
I don't think, because a lot of times, a lot of places are ran by these, and I hate to say it, but white folks, and they don't understand our people.
And that too, but I think even going further, you said it earlier. I think it starts with us. Instead of just saying, I've heard parents say he ain't got no problem for real. He really does. You know what I mean? Being able to recognize and say, hey, for one, he ain't slept in 2 days. That's a problem, right?
He doesn't have a bed.
Yeah, so I think it starts with us for real. So I do agree with you on some aspects of what you're saying, but I like what you said earlier, because you were like, it's being able to recognize as a community and as a family member, like, yo, he's not just off. He needs some help. You know what I mean? So I remember growing up, it was, so-and-so crazy. Like, nah, he really had mental health issues. Now that I'm grown and I'm in the field, like, and somebody had helped him, right? He had been good. You know what I mean? And it's like, too many times you see that slipping through the crack person, and that's where it was. And it was always because, my mom's nephew lived with us all through life growing up. My aunt was on drugs, and my cousin was diagnosed with ADHD. He had Ritalin, and my mom was the whoop you. She'll whoop you out. You know what I mean? You go straighten up. But what I didn't realize what my mom was doing was adding structure to his life. So you would see a vast difference from an unstructured environment to a structured environment. And not saying his behaviors were perfect, but you see, like you said, he knew where his meals were coming from. He knew where he was going to home to. He knew he was going to have lights. You see a difference. And you got to see a difference, and also in love and caring. Like, I think we don't put enough emphasis in that also. When you come from that kind of environment, it's already taught to you that we got to be tough. We're men. Yeah. We're black men. You can't cry. You can't. That's not real, man. I cry. I hurt. Things hurt. Yeah. You know what I mean? So it's funny when we tell kids that it's okay, man. I'm cool. It's cool. You good. So and to see the release, like, you don't have to be the tough guy here.
Those are stressors that are real, and it still continues on when they come see me.
Right, into adulthood. And that's what I really wanted to start with the kids, because I started with the adults, and I was like, maybe if we can catch it early, then you have less adults in the system. And not that you have less adults with it, but you have less adults that aren't functioning normally in society as an active member, because you can. And we've seen it done, right? But you have to be able to be taught that meds aren't bad. They're what you need to function, right? So, but when you have that stigmatism that these things are bad, and you have people and outside influences that aren't really educated on mental health, and you have people telling you, nah, it's this or nah, it's that, instead of really getting a diagnosis.
So what I hear, what I'm saying, and this is really, really a great conversation, and it reminds me a lot of the drug epidemic, right? In this kind of fashion, when you look at the crack epidemic, and we won't go on all of that, versus let's say the opioid epidemic, what you see with opioid epidemic, you see numbers, you see hotlines, right? You see support. I mean, there's even certain police municipalities that will give a person opioids just to keep them off the street from behaving and acting out. What I hear in those things, though, and what I liken it to, is that I hear those situations support, help, understanding. And when it comes to the behavioral health aspect of it, that's where, from my vantage point, I don't hear enough of that. I don't see enough of that. I don't see enough of the clear line to help, right? The clear lines to support and the clear lines to understanding. Yeah. That being said, and then we kind of already touched on it, but from your perspective in kind of each of your fields, why do you feel, let's not ask the why do you feel that is. What do you feel that, in your field, you guys are doing a good job of to kind of help that from a support and kind of standpoint?
I think with the kids is catching it early.
Okay.
It's catching it early and being able to help them so that if you do have relapses, everybody have relapses, right? That's not a bad thing. It's how you come back from it, right? So that the process is shorter once they get to Joy. So it's not a 2-month period of being in a hospital, but a relapse, and we get you back on track, and we have you back out in the community and back with your society and back on your meds and back functioning normally.
Absolutely. Well,
Nah, I agree with him. Catching it early and helping these kids understanding and how to process their thoughts, emotions, and feelings.
Oh man, that's
Because
amazing.
A lot of
Absolutely.
these kids or people, period, don't know how to do that. You know, so giving them the tools and the coping skills, you know, and techniques of how to do that is very important. And again, Marina, as he said, catching it on very early.
So something you said there is skills and tools, and it will definitely come to you, Joy. What are some of the skills and tools that you recommend or that you've seen being effective?
So, you know, I do a lot of therapeutic, like art, role play, you know, things that giving them real life situations, you know what I'm saying, and how to handle that, you know, when they face those adversities or challenges, you know, just even having discussions, you know, about, you know, what it is that they're going through, or journaling, even structure, you're saying, showing them different things, like
Predictability.
yeah, all of that, you know. So those are things that I work on and try to give them and show them. Yeah.
Because anxiety is it's a disease that you can't see.
Right.
But predictability, if I know what's happening next, you know, explaining things to people, teaching them how to structure their lives at home, not only, and it starts with us as little as making your bed every morning, right? So that predictability. So people take that into, they discount those little things, but that little bit of structure that you do every morning, you know, it creates good habits. So that's what we found with kids, was creating good habits, right? So let's create some good habits. Let's come in and with our program, we stabilize in home, right? Because I also didn't want, it's a difference in the facility.
Yeah.
So there's somebody, you're going to ultimately get that structure whether you want it or not, right? Because somebody's going to tell you when to go to bed. Somebody's going to tell you when to make up your bed. Somebody's going to tell you all these things. But if I can teach you that, then you can do those things on your own, right? So, and you'll keep that structure. So listen, in the morning, hop up, make your bed, brush your teeth, grab your meds. So we keep it simple and structured and routine, so it doesn't seem too complicated and it's not overcomplicated. Let's just keep it easy and simple.
Absolutely. So same thing from your standpoint, you know, some of the skills and you know, procedures, whatever you want to call them, that have you seen being beneficial from your end.
A lot of them, when they come in, quite a few, they just want somebody to hear them. And a lot of them are coming to us because it's a stable place. It's something they know. They know what they get, and it's stability for them. They have somebody they can talk to that hears them. So that, like with a lot of our ones that are in and out, that is a lot of it. But one thing, they're adults at this point, so one of the main things is they have to want it for themselves. So that is a huge factor with them being successful once they go out into the community. So you have your issues with meds and the side effects. So it's getting on a routine that you'll stay with, but a lot of it is just wanting it for themselves, wanting to become more mentally healthy.
Is one of your big complaints the side effects? Because I know I hear that a lot from the kids. I don't like the way it makes me feel.
Yeah, so we'll get patients that are discharged on a Friday and are back in the crisis center on Saturday, or Sunday. They throw those meds away because they don't want to take them. They know they're not. The side effects are just horrible, or they just don't want to take them. So that is a huge thing. The medication, the side effects are pretty bad.
I tell a lot of people, we listen to some of the things they say, but not all of them, right? So I listen to when you tell me you want to jump out of the window, but when you tell me your meds will make you feel funny, you don't want to take them, I don't want to hear that part of it. So it's always funny to me that we don't listen to that part of it. Like, is there something we can do to adjust that, right? Is there something else that we can put them on? And it's really, I don't want to dog any doctors, but they're really reluctant to change anything, right? And it's always like, nah, if he just takes them, then this will go away. Or if he just does it, then this will stop eventually. But I'm not going to do something that doesn't feel natural, right? If it's making me feel loopy, or you always get that, like I feel like a zombie, so I'm not taking it.
Right.
Well, that's really something to it, right? Let's not make you feel like a zombie, right? Like, what's the balance we need to find here?
There's a reluctance with the doctor, and then there's a patient that just wants to get out the hospital.
Absolutely.
So they'll agree to whatever.
Absolutely.
So they know if they tell you it doesn't work, that means a longer stay.
Right.
So,
Absolutely. Absolutely.
So let me ask. I'm gonna talk to the guys, and you can chime in if you like. Do you think that when it comes to having a safe space to talk, you're saying, we have that?
I'm actually glad you asked that question, because it was funny as you must have been reading my mind, because it's actually where I'm going next. Because the fastest growing group for suicides in this country is black men.
Mm-hmm.
And you know, Mo, and you know this very well. Dewan, you know this. Joy, you know this very well. This is actually the reason how the podcast kind of got started. Was us sitting down, building and bonding, having conversations on a Saturday or Sunday, 20 or 30 of us on the deck, smoking a cigar, having a drink, because you don't have enough of that. You don't have enough of the opportunities to have real conversations. Dewan, you and I have talked about, personal family matters on a high level, individual matters on a high level. Joy, you and I, Mo, when you're not on your crazy mess, you and I as well.
Yeah, put that.
Yeah, I had to. Well, but what I'm getting at is that we all have that safe space within ourselves, right? Within our community and our network. And the one thing that I love, and this happened to me a long time ago, and I'll tell you what changed my life when it comes to breaking down that false bravado. Good gentleman, unfortunately has passed, gave me a hug. I had never been hugged by a grown man in my life. I was 28. I had never had a grown man put his arms around me and hug me and tell me he loved me. I was 29.
Wow.
I'm 40 years old. You see what I'm saying?
Yeah.
Think about that. 29 years of age, and I never had a man put his arms around me and hug me and simply tell me he loved me.
Yeah.
Nothing else. I had known this man for 2 years. Think about all that false bravado and all that ego and all that hurt and all that pain that each of us hold up. Yeah. And I'm a person that's introspective. I'm clear. I read. Does that make sense?
Yeah. So I wanted to go back to what he had said earlier today, because, and I tell people all the time, I'm 37 years old, and a lot of the things that I was taught about manhood or being a man, I have to unlearn.
Yep.
Bullshit.
Yeah, exactly. Exactly.
Yeah,
exactly.
It's bullshit.
It is.
And I don't know, you got kids?
Absolutely.
I mean, I know you got 2 daughters.
I have 2 daughters also.
So you got to be a little, softer when it becomes just saying.
Absolutely.
However,
no.
It's being real. It's being human.
It's
We were taught to be
not human. Oh man, hey, listen, we can spend a whole. This is a whole other conversation, but
and it's dope because that really feeds in the mental health.
It does.
So let me ask you something.
Yeah,
I know this is probably a little off topic.
no, it's okay.
What do you feel about having boys play with baby dolls?
We're not gonna get into that today because that is a little off topic.
No, but no, because it ties into what I was about to say though.
I'm gonna do twofold. How about this? I want to give you something. I'm gonna answer that question as well.
Because it teaches guys, or it teaches how to be nurturing. And I think
You're
that's
right.
our problem sometimes.
I agree.
We run away from that because we're too, hard or whatever.
I know. I got you.
ahead.
No, because I got a story for this. It's important.
But you got something to say, Joe?
No.
Yeah.
Go ahead.
Very interesting. So 2 parts. I would like to talk about just from a parental standpoint.
Mm-hmm.
A wise lady once told me. She said, "Your children don't need the same tools that you had," and that really hit me. And I know it's something you and I had talked about the other day. It's like I was so focused on them being prepared for this tough, difficult world, right? And this tough, difficult environment that I didn't even realize that's not the environment that they're in.
Right.
Yeah.
They're not in a tough, difficult environment. They don't have to
That
worry
was
about
your life.
that was my life, right? Right. They ain't got to worry about food not being in the refrigerator, bills not being on, right? You know what I'm saying? Is it gonna be cold in the house, right? Is it gonna be hot in the house? You know what I mean? Is it gonna be AC? That's not their existence. So that tough dexterity that I had, right? They don't need. It's okay for their father to, put their arms on them, love on them, joke on them, right? Be sensitive to their needs, right? And within that, to get to your second point, they had a really good friend, whose name I won't say, of course, that played with Barbie dolls. And one of the coolest, young men I've ever met in my life. But here was the problem. We talk about stigmas. What do you think they did to him? They labeled him gay.
Mm-hmm.
And to see that happen to that
Or
young
soft,
man,
or
or soft,
whatever
it was tragic because in some regards, not totally, but in some regards, they shunned him because he actually has an older sibling that was more into sports.
Right.
And he got all the support, right? Because we're talking about support, mental health, got all the support. Where the other young man was kind of moved to the side.
Mm-hmm.
You know what I mean? And when you watch what's happened over the past 3 to 4 years of his life, unfortunately, things have kind of got back on track. you can see also where it got off track.
Yeah.
Acting out in school, right? You know what I mean? Getting into fights, getting into all these things because he didn't know how to process those emotions. Just saying, "Hey, I just happen to like Barbies." It doesn't have nothing to do with my sexuality as a kid. I don't know my sexuality yet. I just happen to like Barbies because, and the reality was the environment that he was in. It was just a bunch of young ladies around that played with Barbies, and those were his friends. And he's like, "Okay, you play with him, I play with him. We're all happy."
Yeah.
Instead of seeing that, they labeled him. You see what I'm saying? Going back to like we're talking about ADHD and some other things, we're so quick to judge kids that it takes them off the path instead of allowing them to grow and develop their voice and figuring out who they are. We tell them who they are, like instead of letting them discover themselves. And so, just wanted to get that out the way. Go ahead.
And that's why I thought what you said earlier was super dope, man. And that's why me and Joy was talking off camera, and we're all trained. My whole department is trained in crisis management, so we do restraints. They're not pain compliant. And I was telling her restraints are done when they're done with love, are done differently, right? And it was really crazy to me that we would get these young men up off the floor and we give them a hug, man, I love you, and they'd be like, what? You know what I mean? Like, bro, I love you. I love you as a man. I love you as a person. You know what I mean? And they hadn't heard that at 10 or 11. So imagine you at 29. So at 10 or 11, you haven't heard that. And it was you know, when we first started doing it, people would look at us funny and what's wrong with telling somebody you love them, right?
Right.
You know what I mean? That's weird that you don't, right? Like, I care about this kid, right? But I also wanted him to understand, listen, man, there's nothing wrong with getting a hug from a grown man. There's nothing wrong. Listen, man, let me give you a hug, man. I love you. You don't have to be the tough guy. Let's break down some of those walls that we had to create, right? Because you lived in the hood and you had to be tough and everybody was tough guys. And you realize tough guys don't last long in life.
No, they don't.
I don't want to be a tough guy because I don't want to have to do what it takes to be a tough guy, right?
Yeah.
Because I'm not willing to be in jail or dead or in prison. I just want to love people, man, and I want to teach people how to love. And what you realize, these kids aren't taught how to love,
Right.
Because of where we grow up and what we have to deal with.
Joy, let me ask you, going back to the question I was talking about, having these safe spaces for men to talk. Do you think that sometimes women make it difficult for men to be open and vulnerable? Because, and the reason why I ask that, because sometimes when we are, men are considered, you're saying, or some women will say, oh, you being soft, you being weak, you're saying, or she don't want no man, being a punk, So do you
Are
think?
you just asking me from a personal standpoint? Because I don't see that in...
No, I'm just saying.
I mean,
It's not in my world.
So I'm saying, but do women, you said sometimes make it difficult for men to open up? I mean, and y'all can answer that after she do.
I mean, yes, some, but I mean, that's that type of woman. I mean, once again, it's about how they were raised as well, and type of environment they had. So, I mean, it goes both ways.
Now we're gonna make this a little deeper. How do you handle it, Joy?
You know what?
And I'll say this, Joy. So part of our program was really teaching kids self-love and self-worth, because these are things they don't know.
Right.
Like if you don't know you come from something great, then you don't know that you are great. So you just expect it to be what my uncle was. You know what I mean? We heard a lot of times kids be like, my uncle's in prison. But that's not cool. You know what I mean? Like, nah, it's not a rite of passage. You don't got to go to prison.
Right.
You know what I mean?
You're repeating what you see.
Yeah, and you have that cycle repeated. So I think it's that environment and that community aspect of things where it's okay, bro. It's okay to cry. It's not. I'm not Superman. If you punch me hard enough, it's gonna hurt, right? Like,
right.
So it was getting them to understand those things. Like, bro, it's okay. But so we started doing things like daily affirmations. I want you to know that you're great. You got to tell yourself that. You got to believe it. Mr. Dewan believes it in you, but you got to believe it, or it's not gonna work. So we started like daily affirmations. I was telling Dale, we talk a lot, and I was telling him, we exposed them to things that we weren't exposed to growing up in the hoods we grew up in. So we play chess, we golf. I mean, we do all these uncool things, but these are real world experiences that they never had. And they looking at us like, whoa, this is crazy. Even going to restaurants, teaching them how to put the napkins on their lap. And things that you're not exposed to. I think exposure to anything, exposure to love, exposure to kindness opens people up, and it helps. And I think it helps soften mental health, because ultimately I feel like you're trying to take advantage of me. I put this wall up, I'm guarded. Nah, bro, I'm not here to hurt you. I'm not here to take nothing from you. I'm here to love you, my man. Let's take a walk.
Absolutely.
So I mean, kind of as we kind of get into the end, I want to make sure we do what we always do. So if you wouldn't mind, Ms. Martin, would you hand me that? Because really, as we talked about, the way this podcast kind of came about was actually over a quality glass of whiskey and a cigar, but we don't have one of those in this moment. House rules. Because I think this is incredibly important, right? Because when we're sitting down and we're talking, we're building, we're bonding, as we always talk about, you guys, we all are our own, network. We're our own support group. And, so genuinely from the bottom of my heart, and, I have no problem saying this, I love each of you. I've told you all individually, I love you guys collectively. This is what we're talking about. This is exactly what we're talking about. You know what I'm saying?
Come on, guys.
No, because that was uncalled for and unnecessary. I'm not gonna have a whole episode on camera. You're about to make me. You know what? I'm gonna have a flashback moment.
But before we get into the toast and all of that,
yes, sir.
Just before we wrap up, what is it, the end goal for you guys in your?
Oh, that's a great question. I like that. That's a great question.
You can go first.
For me, I'm still searching. I do not know. I don't think I still have reached my calling. I know it's with the mentally ill. Where I'm at now, I don't think that's what it is, because I still desire to be there with the patients. I desire to be their forefront. So, but things have changed with acuity, violence, and things like that. So I'm still trying to figure that out. But mental health field is, I know for sure that's where I need to be.
No, I want to hear it from you, because it's something we've talked about.
So for me, man, I think creating agencies and places that people can get the services that they need, having more representation in our community is very important, and just educating our people and making them feel comfortable, believing in counseling and therapy, especially with mental health. I believe that it's something that we still deal with and struggle with. However, I just want to open more doors and eyes and have more resources and funding for different agencies and programs. So that's my end goal.
Absolutely.
Mine is a lot like Mo's. I want to catch it early to help these kids be able to maintain and be productive members of society. But I also want to take on the fight of the county and the government and the agencies that provide the funding, paying these workers what they deserve to get paid in the right amount, so we can get the help we need. You get what you pay for is real, right?
Exactly.
So you pay people nothing, you get nothing. So I think if we change those lines and change those outcomes, we'll see a difference in the mental health field and helping these young people and these older people, because it doesn't just affect white people or black people or brown people. It affects everybody, because it's a community thing. So when you dealt with that, your brother having it or what family member had it didn't affect just you, it affects your whole family. So
absolutely.
I think if we can work on that as a family and as a community and really putting some more emphasis in this, I think we could go, it'd be amazing.
And for me, for us, it's, continue to do this. Continue to be that, that place and that environment for open dialogue. Yeah. We've all had, real conversations on a higher level, and I think that the old saying, each one teach one.
Absolutely.
Whether it's, teaching or providing the tools to even begin to work on yourself and saying, am I having a moment, right? Am I having a situation or an episode where I'm feeling unhealthy mentally, right? If I'm feeling unhealthy emotionally, because a lot of times it can just be, I'm feeling overwhelmed emotionally, right? I'm not getting enough sleep. That was actually my family member's trigger, was not enough rest.
Knowing the symptoms of things.
Exactly.
You know what I mean?
Being able to see it in your friends and see it in your family members and see it in your loved ones. And then within that, even when things are good, making sure that you're putting your arms on people and tell you that you love them. Royce 5'9" has this great song I always remember. It says, check in on your strong friend.
Absolutely.
And I think that for each of our communities and our groups, we're our strong friends. And sometimes that strong friend needs that call and says, hey, how are you today?
Right.
I just want you to know I love you. Man, let's go grab a bite to eat.
Absolutely.
You know what I'm saying? Pull up on it, let's have a drink, you know what I mean? And just even if it's just to talk, listen to some music, or just laugh, because you'd be amazed how many people wallow and self-pity and self-grief and are uncomfortable just stating, hey, I'm having a rough time over here. And so from that standpoint, you know what I mean, I want to make sure that we continue to do that. I continue to do that. As you guys all know, you're always welcome to call me, pull up whenever.
Absolutely. And I want to thank you guys for the platform and talking about this, because not a lot of people open their platforms to things like this. So I think it's dope of you guys to do that. And before we left, I wanted to ask you guys, as other mental health professionals, what do you do to unwind? Because you do a tough job and a stressful job. Who plugs into you, or who helps you, or what do you do to unwind?
That's funny because when I first started out, man, I was drinking. Like at 5
Right.
o'clock, I was constantly drinking. Seriously, man, because we always pour into other people. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
It's like who's pouring into us.
It
You know what I'm
is
saying?
mentally draining.
And
And that's why I wanted to ask that, because nobody asked that about the professionals.
Yes.
Like, what is
Yeah, and so I mean, I caught myself and said, man, I can't do this. So I even started going to therapy. You know what I'm saying? Talking to somebody.
Absolutely.
Because again, like I said, I needed somebody to pour into it. And when you're dealing with kids that are being raped, you know what I'm saying, or just you want to take on some of those problems that they have. It's like kids shouldn't be going through adult problems or situations.
Mm-hmm.
So I started to talk to someone. So that's how I dealt with it.
And that's why I especially wanted to hear from you dealing with kids, because you hear those heart-wrenching stories, man. You take that stuff personally. You take it home. My ride homes are the worst, man. I'd be like, God, because you feel bad. I had to leave him here. You know what I mean? Like, oh my God.
One of the hardest things I had to do was a few months ago. 2 grandparents. One said that, hey, Mr. Moore, I can't do it anymore. Take care of my 2 grandkids. So we ended up placing them at another grandparent house. They couldn't take care of them no more. So I then had to call Children's Service and get these people, you know what I'm saying, kids some shelter and I had to drive them to a place that I didn't know this guy. You know, they didn't know them, and had to leave them there. Like, and then just saying, man, y'all call me if y'all need anything. It tore me up inside, and I still get emotional about it, even just thinking about it, because again, both of their parents are dead, and really those were the only family members that really wanted to, would take them in, and nobody else wanted them. So it's tough, man. It is.
I had a similar story, man. We had a young kid we worked with, and our time was up. Our funding is short term. We're stabilizing, get out, and I knew we wasn't ready, and I knew he wasn't ready. And as soon as we left, he was back in a facility, and I was driving home crying when this caseworker called me, and I was calling my wife, like, man, what did you think about adopting? And she was like, listen, bro, we can't take on the world's problems. Like, you got your own problems here, my brother. But you take that serious, and that's why I wanted to know from y'all, because I'd be riding home sometime, and my wife be like, why don't you call me? And I'm like, bro, I need to decompress. Like, I really gotta get this out before I get home, because I have a family at home. I have kids, you know what I mean? And that stuff weighs on you, the situations you see them in, and the things that you see that a kid has to go through. And I'm not saying that adults should have to go through it, but even a kid, you know what I mean? The innocence of that, and it wears on you, man. So,
what about you?
Right. So at least with you guys, that part of it, that doesn't stress me, or I don't have to deal with that as much. But I've always been the friend that works out all the time. I'm always that one. And that's what I do.
okay.
That's how I cope. That is how I release any frustrations or anger. So that's generally it, because I'm not the talker. I don't talk too much unless I got a little bit of help.
We'll keep on drinking.
But I know when it's time, I know who I can call.
Yeah,
and
indeed.
so I have that small circle that I do know I feel safe with.
Yeah.
So.
Okay.
No, and it's actually, I'm glad we did that, because, within that, it's really glad you asked that question. Is, I had another one. It's just from that standpoint, and you guys have already answered it, just from your mental health check-ins.
Yeah.
Do you check in, and if so, who are you checking in with? You checking in with yourself? Checking with someone else? How do you guys handle that from an adult standpoint, just from a life standpoint?
With my schedule at work, I check it with myself, because I have time to decompress. So I work 12-hour shifts. So I have days where I'm not dealing with it at all. So I have time to get back to my normal self, and then I'm ready to deal with it again and bring myself out. So with my schedule, it works. Working in that field, I can handle it on my own. So
Mo?
Man, hookah or cigars, man.
Yeah.
Seriously. That's it. That's relaxing for me, man.
A conversation culture, man.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
I have a great wife and I have great kids that are committed to this also. So I think that really helps. So I have that release. But golfing, bro, I'm out golfing. Any chance you can find me, I'm on the golf course.
Right.
Because it gives me that mental clarity. It gives me that chance to think, that chance to breathe. And I think that's what, when you work in this field, people don't realize it's almost suffocating.
yes,
Because it's so big of a problem and there's so few people
Yes.
doing it. It feels overwhelming, and you can try to take it all on yourself. And people like yourself, I get to talk to you. And I think we had a conversation. You was going through a situation. I said, I just want to reach out to you because you're the guy that reach out to everybody. So it's making sure that the people that reach out to everybody is taken care of. So making sure that you guys are taken care of. And I think people don't put enough emphasis into that.
Right, big
so
facts.
nobody asks the people that are working with the people how they're doing.
yeah.
And that's what those are the cultures that I would like to see change within agencies and people that are doing this. Making sure that those people have that time, because burnout is real, and when you see so much trauma, it starts to really wear on you. So
Yeah, it's real. And even, from that standpoint, through osmosis with my wife and what she's dealing with at work, a lot of it has to do with behavioral health and how that's, you're saying, spills over into the health field.
Yeah.
Just your physical health, and, stressors and things of that nature. And, I won't, go down that rabbit hole, but you guys know.
Yeah.
And so, again, this is great. I appreciate you guys. Thank you, Joy, Mo, and Dewan for sharing your stories. And, man, I don't really have anything else to say, but listen, let's raise a glass.
I appreciate y'all, man. This was amazing.
As we always do around this time. Y'all can be anywhere in the world, but you guys are right here with me. Salute. Salute.
Yo, this is Straight Talk No Chaser. I'm your boy Mo Giles.
Del Moncrief.
Thank you for joining.
Tune in.